little smile, it can be a nod, it can be a gesture, you can buy something from a vendor, but you can just make a 2-second connection if that's all it takes. Mood and mirroring. People will mirror the way you look, the way you project yourself. And this is of utmost importance. I cannot emphasize this enough, that, and I'll give you some examples as we go through. It's quite simply that. The way you look, the way you sound, the energy coming from you, that will show in the photograph that you're taking of them. Have a strong radar. What does that mean? It means being very sensitive to what's going on around you, what's the mood and the feeling of the place, when is it appropriate to start shooting, but also right then when you're standing in front of somebody, you're right in front of them, you're watching them like a hawk, brings me to my next point, and you're watching those flickers of expression that pass over their face while you're photographing so that you can sort of adjust. You're going to adjust the tone of your voice, maybe the way you gesture with your hands, what you say, because you're seeing if they look or feel uncomfortable, do they look concerned, do they look comfortable, do they need you to talk to them, or are they okay if you fall silent? What's working in this situation? So you have to be ultra sensitive to what you're seeing and feeling in front of you. And as I say, watch like a hawk. You're always on, you're never off. So that means you don't want to miss that second, that split second. Okay, what is the goal? What's the goal? What are you trying to achieve in people photography? It's quite simple. You want to make images that have impact and emotion, and that allow subjects to speak their own truth. So, but what does that mean? How do you get there? That sounds good. Well, impact and emotion can come with some very basic nuts and bolts like great light, good composition, also the emotion that is literally on somebody's face. And allowing subjects to speak their truth is you're giving them the space, however, whatever that means. Maybe it's with the way you speak to them, the way you ask questions of them, because you want them to project what's coming from inside out into the camera. So don't over direct. And there's so many things I can say about each point, but let me move forward so we can see these people stories. And finally, I believe what my goal is to make images of people that have soul and dignity. I'm not trying to make fun of people, although I have a sense of humor, and there's nothing wrong with making playful photographs, but I don't want to make fun of people generally. Okay, so projecting positivity, as I already said, what does that mean? So here, they look pleasant and happy because I'm extolling, my emotions, how happy I am to be photographing them, and I'm not projecting grumpiness. If I feel frustrated because I can't figure out how to shoot something, I'll try to keep that to myself or make a joke about it. The whole goal is that you want people to trust you. You want to be a human being with them, so they trust you with perhaps access, allowing you to come inside their homes, inviting you in, inviting you into their emotions, their heart. You want access. You want to get inside. Mood and mirroring. Couple of quick examples. So here with Piroshka in Romania, I had just met her, and I was like, wow, what a beautiful, adorable, lovely woman. I want to go inside. I want her to let me follow her in the gate. So I'll start off with a big smile, and I usually have a translator. I can make do without a translator sometimes with gestures, and people seem to understand. But basically, this is how I look. I look smiley. She looks smiley. She's mirroring the way I look. But then once we get in, I want to do a serious portrait of her. So I'm not going to joke around, or I'm going to really make sure my translator is not projecting jokes. And I don't want a laughy picture here. I want just a serious, nice, settled in portrait. So my manner is going to change, where I'm going to be serious, my words are going to be serious, and so on. Have a strong radar and a sharp eye to see and sense how people feel. If she had been looking confused, like, what is it that you want me to do? Should I stand here? Should I put my hand here? Then you want to, it's what I call the verbal massage. You never said that before, actually. You want to make them feel comfortable, whatever way, however way that might work. If you don't need to speak, fall silent. So here, when I was photographing Team in Cambodia, this amazing artist who paints these paintings that you see behind him, he is very shy. He doesn't like having his photograph taken. I really wanted to photograph him. It's that difficult situation where I don't know whether I should just, he didn't say no, but I could sense that he didn't want it to go on for too long. So I could sense, I knew that, I could feel it. And so I just did a quick one like this. And then I stopped talking and he just looked out. He went into his own world. And this was a more accurate portrait of him, actually, which I found out later because his sister told me and said, that's Team. That's Team. His shyness comes through, his solitude in a way. So if you show that you're serious about making a great image to your subject, they will very often not want to run away. Okay, how do you keep them there? How do you keep them there as you're trying to figure out the settings, trying to get your camera on the tripod possibly, trying to figure out a bunch of things? You know, you've got the technical stuff going on. What's the background? What f-stop should it be? And you're kind of trying to figure all this out at the same time as make a beautiful photograph of them. And if they sense that you're really serious about trying to get something, you're not just going to do a quick snap and say, okay, well, thanks, and move on, then they will stay there for you. For example, here, this priest in Romania, along with the other clergy, they were all on their way out of this room. They were going from our right to left to go out the door. And I'm standing there with a tripod. Actually, I didn't have the tripod yet. I'm standing there taking photographs of them going out, thinking, well, this is interesting. They're walking out. Actually, a terrible idea. It wasn't a good photograph at all. And he just sort of stops and he turns to me, and this is exactly what he looks like. And it just like stopped me in the stomach, like, whoa, look at that face. Look at that expression. Look at the way he's looking at me. I've got to get this on film. It was digital, but we say that. And I mean, I must have been like, oh my God, just please stay. No translator. So I'm just speaking English. So I'm like, stop, just please stay. I want this shot, but I need the darn tripod because there wasn't as much light as you think by looking at this photograph. So I'm like keeping him there with one hand. And I'm saying, I just need the tripod, you know, like you talk in English. And he sensed that, like, I really want this photograph. So I ran and got my tripod, and I felt like if I kept looking at him, he would keep that expression. So I'm trying to set my tripod up without losing eye contact. And then I got this shot. But that's what it took. He was not going to just run away. He could see that I really wanted that beautiful photograph of him. So it was the ultimate flattery in a way. And sometimes then almost the opposite of the shot of somebody looking right at you is the one where they just, in your presence, this is what I say, they go into their own world. And this can happen right in the middle of a photo session, but you have to watch like a hawk, because I love those photographs where people, quote unquote, go into their world. Here in Hanoi, the music professor, he went into his world, so to speak, because boy, did he get bored with me being there. I was in his house. My camera was turned to the right, looking outside at this French tram, this old tram in Hanoi, the last of two French trams left. And this tram would go up the track, and I'd go, oh, click, 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 click. And then I'd stand there and wait for the tram to come back down the track. And he was okay. And after a while, in between, instead of looking up, is that tram coming back down? What's going on here? I turned and I saw this, and it's like, oh my God, this is so much more interesting than the tram. I don't know why I'm bothering with this. Actually, every picture has such a long story. I invite you over for the weekend. I can tell you, this just goes on and on, because first what I started to do was, I'm going to make a double page spread here. The tram's going to go up the track on the left. He'll be on the left, like he's playing an elegy to the old tram. And then that was not such a great idea. It was too muddied, too much going on. Like, you're overthinking this. He's not playing an elegy to the old tram. In fact, if you notice, his guitar only has one string, so I don't know what he's playing at all. Anyway, forget the tram, turned to him, and he had gone into his own world, and so much more beautiful than the other ones, which, you know, looking at me and so on, were not interesting. So simply put, a successful photograph is a photograph that shows emotion. That's what we can boil it all down to. And that goes for not just a people shot, but all photography. So you'll see this next series here, the little girl in the pagoda in Hue. I mean, just full of joy, the sadness on the new bride's face. But the emotion of the photograph comes from much more than just her look, her expression. It comes from the whole scene. It comes from keeping the reflections of the window in the shot, so she feels isolated and trapped. The emotion that comes from Pa Nien, the landmine survivor, as he closes his eyes while he's playing this music. It comes from the side light. It comes from the pathos and the poignancy of seeing that he has only one working leg. Here, the emotion comes from, yes, the expressions, but it also comes from that blue light, which was the light that was coming from the department store behind me. And it's that light. It's also the contrast between the stillness and the sort of that odd stillness of their expression and of their body language, the two main vendors here in front, and the chaos that's behind, the contrast. And here, this is a friend of mine from France, actually. You know, sometimes people's expressions, they just look like this. They look in the camera, they just look like this. This gentleman was abandoned as an infant of just, I don't know, a few hours old. He was dumped in a dumpster and found by this Catholic family who brought him up, even though his background was gypsy. So I want to show you a sequence, a how-to. What did I do? What happened? How did I get the shot? So this is Eliane, and I know her a little bit. She watches over the church in the village of Seyon, which is near where I live in Provence. And I just was walking in the village, and I saw this. And okay, so I start with a portrait. Perfectly nice photograph. I'm fine. I could have walked away. I could have said, thank you very much. It's lovely. Have a good day, Eliane. But I wanted to see if I could get something that was, I don't know, somehow deeper. I have no idea, and I would have no idea what was coming up. So first I get this one. Always the nice smile. Let's start off positive. That's fine. Chit-chatting away, lovely picture. Could just stick with this one and walk away. But at that point, I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Because she's standing there looking at me, and I'm looking at her. What do I do? What do you do? Okay. So Eliane, where are you going now? because I figure I'll follow them. I don't want to tell them where to go, but I'll follow them. So she says, well, I'm on my way into the church. I say, oh, that's nice. She said, but first I have to feed the cats. Oh, okay. So let them just do their thing, because you don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know. I don't have a concept in my head. So I'll just do some journalistic shots, shall we say. So feeding, being with the cats, showing her loving nature, showing the kitty loving her. And okay, she's feeding the cat, and I'm just kind of clicking. I have to click for myself, and if they hear the click, they feel encouraged sometimes. Then I suddenly notice that the light, follow the light. Follow the light. This is not an original thing I'm saying as a photographer. But that can also help you. So suddenly I noticed that when she kind of eased over to the left, because the other shot was towards the right, the light is bouncing off of something. It's some reflected light that makes her face just glow. So I'm like, oh, okay, let's sort of redo that portrait coming over here, and let's try a smiling one. Not bad, always a good way to start. And then just keep shooting. I mean, keep shooting. So I always love this kind of what we call the broken moment, which I'll come back to later, where, you know, she just for a minute sort of like has that second where she's smiling in another direction, shall we say. Then I follow her into the church, and I think, I don't know what I'm going to do in here. I've been in this church before, but not at this time of day, where I notice the light. Again, the light is coming in on Joan of Arc. I think this is it? Sorry. This is Joan of Arc. I should know my French history and religion better. Anyway, the light is so beautiful. I'm thinking, wait a second, how can I use this light but do a portrait of Eliane? I don't know yet. Let's just play around with this. So I asked her to come and stand in the light where it's coming through the stained glass windows. Again, looking at me. It's nice. It's fine. It's okay. The light is interesting, better than outside. And then I decide to include some of the colors above and that little thing on the wall up there. So I give it more height. And then I'm not quite sure how this happened. I think, so sometimes I get, not sometimes, often or almost all the time, I get a shot because of something that I say that prompts an expression out of somebody. And this is a very important point. What you say, it's not necessarily directing. You could say it's directing, but I never say, smile. I mean, that's just dumb. Okay. And also don't say 1, 2, 3, because it doesn't get better from 2 to 3. It actually gets worse. It starts off good at 1, and then it gets worse at 2, and then 3. Anyway, don't say 3, 2, 1. Sorry, I'm getting way too jokey here. I don't remember what happened exactly, but maybe I would have said something like this. So Eliane, how do you feel when you're here in the church? How does this make you feel? And she may have said, oh, I know that I am in the arms of God when I'm in here. That is something she would say. And so I don't know whether she just closed her eyes, and I said, show me how you feel. And this is what she did. And this was the shot that I liked. Now, what a difference from that first one just standing outside, where anybody can take that shot walking by. But how do you get a little bit deeper? I thought I was going to show you the contact sheet of how many pictures I took to get to this point and how long did it take. But I'm saying it's 15 minutes of your time. Now, yes, I did already know her. That made it easier, but I could have met her for the first time. So let me show you another, just 3 pictures. So I spent the afternoon with Maria Poenaru, who was then, 12 years ago, the oldest icon painter in Romania. And again, when I went over there, I did not have a preconceived idea of what I wanted to do. It was on assignment for National Geographic Traveler. So on assignment, but also maybe just for myself, I'll often start with what I call the obvious one. If I don't get anything else, I've got the classic portrait. So we see her, we see one that she's working on, I asked her to hold this one in particular. I want you to know that she's the artist, but she didn't, this was the best we could do for the moment. Her walls are covered with her own icon paintings, and National Geographic Traveler could very well run this full page spread. And if she's done with me and she's tired after the 30 minutes it took to get this shot, I know I got one in the bag. So I'm not going to start with something overly creative. And I don't even think that way anyway. I always start and think with the obvious. I'm nervous. I'm tight. So then I would say to her, after this, okay, after that one above, sorry, this one, I do, how do I say this delicately? Or I could just say it honestly. I will, I don't want to say push people, but I will keep going with a session as long as it could be possible. Okay. So I don't want to say to myself, well, she's probably tired and I should stop. I don't know if she is. I don't know yet. And I'm not ready to just say thank you and leave. If she allows me to stay, I'm going to stay. So what I say is, it's very, very important the way this is phrased. I say, so Maria, what will you do now? And if she says, take a nap, then I'm going to go. I'm going to say, thank you very much. Obviously, I'm not going to go, oh, could you stay awake for another hour for me? No, this is when I take my nap time. Fine, great, thank you. She says, well, I'm going to keep working on the painting that I'm working on now. Bingo, perfect, love it. So I will say, instead of saying, oh, can I take more pictures of you doing that? Which should be like, oh my God, not more pictures. I just say, oh, may I watch how you do that? Now, I know I'm going to take photographs, but I don't want to wear her out with that thought that I'm going to keep on going here. So I basically just follow her upstairs, and I don't have to say anything. I just squeeze myself into a position where I get this great window light. I don't have to change anything. I don't have to rearrange anything. I just got lucky that this is where she works, and my back is pressed up against the wall, and I'm just photographing away. And so now I get what I think is a more interesting photograph. When I feel personally done, because she's going to be here for a while, then I say to myself, well, let's see, what else can I do without bothering her now? Let her go in her world, so to speak. And I feel comfortable enough creatively. All right, I got two good ones. Now I can try for something that maybe the magazine would never publish, but it's for me now. And this is my favorite one for many different reasons. So that's how I worked that situation. And how long was I with her? The whole time? Maybe just 2 hours, not too much. All right, let me tell you the story of Ben Yates, because what I said last presentation, what I said a little bit in the beginning here, is that when you're photographing, I'm sure that you are not out to do any harm. Okay, you're loving what you're doing. You might be nervous. You might feel like, you're nervous photographing people. Lots of people are nervous photographing people, including me a lot. But you have to know that what you're doing is something good. So in many different ways. So let me tell you about Ben Yates. So Ben, I was on assignment for National Geographic Traveler in New Mexico. And I had heard that there was a Native American who had a herd, they said herd of buffalo in his backyard, like in the suburbs. So I thought, well, that's interesting. Let me see what that's about. Well, he didn't have a herd. He had about 4 buffalo, and they were a mangy lot. Okay, so I went to visit him. I introduced myself. The first thing I noticed is that he's wildly photogenic, and I'm not really an animal photographer. I don't really care about the buffalo. I'm just curious. And so we go out to the backyard. He shows me the buffalo. I struggle. I try to take some good pictures. It's not working. I say, well, you've got a fabulous little herd here. Now, can we go back inside the house? And I know that I want to photograph him. And I knew that he would be reluctant because he was very, very shy. So I had to try to figure out how to make this happen. So basically, I had seen this area of his house, which had all these interesting things. I'm not an expert in Native American culture. What do I know? So I'm just going to be myself. So I want to tell you and show you how I was able to get a very shy, reluctant person to agree to be photographed, and then what happened after that. So what I did is first I just said, Ben, uh, what are all these? What does all this mean? Could you tell me about? These are obviously meaningful things to you. What is this about? Where did this come from? What's the story behind this? And we're talking about these objects, and I'm interested. I'm very curious, but the window light is gorgeous. And I just thought to myself, I know exactly where to put him right here. I've got the Hasselblad. I'm going to do this great portrait. And I said, Ben, would you let me take a photograph of you here? And he goes, oh, and he's like, oh, I don't really want to, but well, okay. Anyway, I don't take a lot of his time. It's just a few minutes. That's all I need. And took the photograph, and it ended up being one of the two vertical openers to the story. Sent him the magazine, got in touch with him a couple months later, had a question for him because I was coming back to Santa Fe. I was looking for a certain kind of location. And on the phone, he says to me, Catherine, and I got the magazine, and I want to tell you that when that magazine came in the mail, that was a bad day for me. It was a bad day. He said, I was going to just, and whatever he said, he meant like something serious, like he was done. He said, my girlfriend left me. She took the kids with her, and I didn't think life was worth it anymore. And then when the magazine came in the mail and I opened it up and I saw the photograph that you took of me, he said, I realized I matter. I want to show you a sequence of some photographs that I took at Lake Winnipeg, also an assignment for National Geographic Traveler. It was on something like the 12 greatest places in Canada, and I had to, no, I'm like 25 greatest places in Canada, and I had to photograph maybe about 8 of them. So I find myself at Lake Winnipeg, wondering what on earth are they thinking? This is really, really boring. Okay. It is a wide, huge, flat lake with nothing going on. And I cannot make an amazing photograph that's publishable when there's nothing to photograph. So I called my photo editor, Dan, who was used to me calling on assignment and just being like, I don't know, I can't see anything. There's nothing to shoot here. What do you want me to do? What am I supposed to do here? And he knows that when I make that call, somehow the luck changes for me. And so he's like, Catherine, you'll be fine. I'm sure there's something there if you look, and this kind of thing. And it's like, I'm like, well, I'll go out and look again. So I get something to eat and then I go back out. And I realized the problem was me. Okay. Now, sometimes there is nothing to shoot. I do have to say, sometimes you do have to walk away. But I was not looking at what was right in front of me, which were these lovely, simple, utterly simple scenes of people enjoying the beach and the water. So I'm sure there's at least somebody out there in the audience who's thinking, so did you ask permission? The answer is yes. I did ask permission. I would see a scene, and yes, of course, if I don't shoot it, click right off the bat, I'm going to miss it. So should I ask the permission first? What should I do? I don't know. But there's all these families sitting on the beach, and I'm standing out like a sore thumb, not wearing a bathing suit, wearing sneakers and, a photo vest or something probably, and with the cameras, and I look so out of place. Everyone's like staring. So I better behave. All right. So maybe I'll miss the shot, but it's better to look around and go, where's mom and dad? So here's mom and dad. Hi, da da da. I have to explain what I'm doing every time. Do you mind? May I photograph your kids playing in the water? Yes, I get the yes. And then, because everyone's watching, or at least I think everybody is, I better ask permissions. So I did. And then I just got these simple little scenes that I don't know why I didn't see them at first. And I could have stayed all afternoon. So let's talk a little bit about what is a storytelling picture? Because I hear people say this all the time. They say, and this photograph, because I wanted to tell the story. And okay, use the word story. I don't want to say don't use the word story, but a storytelling picture really tells a story. It's not just, well, okay, I won't say what it's not. Let me show you a couple of images that I think are really storytelling images in a very obvious way. Okay, so here in Umbria, on a workshop that I used to give, we would do, I mean, you can almost see it here, okay? Not that a photograph shouldn't have a caption. I think photographs should have captions, but this photograph has the actual elements that go with the words that I'm about to say, okay? So here's the caption. In our Umbria workshop, we have a day where guests ride in vintage cars through a charming tiny little village in Umbria, and the locals just love this day, and we all have a good time. Okay, now I can say that, and you can go, yeah, I pretty much see it. Now, what you don't want to happen, and this is a generalization because I do believe in subtlety and not seeing everything all the time, but what you don't really want to happen is, well, you know, on our workshop, we ride in these vintage cars. Well, you can't see the car; it's out of the frame, it's behind me, but we do. Trust me, we ride these vintage cars, and the guests. Well, you don't see a guest here, but there will be one. I mean, she'll get in the car in a minute, and you'll see. And we ride through this village. Well, okay, you can see it's a village. And the locals, well, I know there's no locals in the shop, but they do love it when we come through. Okay, that is not a storytelling picture. If it's just devoid of just the street. Okay, here on Lake Geneva, what's going on is okay, so grape pickers take a break from harvest to enjoy a snack. This woman in the green, owner Jolie, tells the dog, I can't remember the dog's name, that he can't have a piece of fruit bread. While, these two workers who are wearing the white scarves, who have come from some Balkan, Slovenia or Balkan country, whatever, have come to help pick the grapes. And I can go on and on. I haven't even gotten to the first story yet. They're already 11:15. I'm going to move a little bit faster. But basically, there's so much more to say about why the grapes are grown in this region, why they have their own special taste because of the sun, because of the lake, because da-da-da. You see the architecture gives you a sense of place. It's all right here. It's all right here. So these are what I honestly say are storytelling pictures. The story is in the shot. All right, so a little fun interlude while I show you some pairings, the pairings are fun to do, especially for those of you who are putting together books. So how do you make a pairing? Well, two pictures go together. But for me, they've got to go together at the very, most importantly, aesthetically. So yes, there's subject matter, but there's palette, there's mood and connection. What does that mean? Okay, so here we have Claudia on the right, and she's an artist, and this is one of her pieces. So the palette goes together, the subject matter goes together, and there's I'm going to show you an actual connection in some ones coming up, but I mean an aesthetic connection, but so these obviously go together. Okay, then we've got Lavinia here, and this obviously the palette goes here, and they're both Romania. No, she didn't make these particular cakes, but that's okay. So you've got the palette of the strong yellow, and sort of a happy mood in both of these. Here on the right, in the red is Fred, and in the blue is my husband, Gilles. And it's harvest. It's harvest of olives. So I got this whole pairings design from Traveler, who often would open a story with two verticals. And so you see, there's a connection. There's a formula in a way, should we say? So we have a close up on one side, and more of like a medium shot. Maybe we have people mixed with details. Here, the sign is the sign of the place. So they go together. They obviously go together. You can just see it. Here, you can't see Giorgio, but this is Giorgio's hand, and he is making burrata. And on the left is part of the process. But of course, the palette being whites like this brings them together. So subject matter and palette. In this case, they're both kind of close-ups. And here, Pasquale and what was her name, Carol? I can't remember her name. Anyway, wife and husband make focaccia. So here's a portrait of them, and then the close-up of the focaccia on the right. So they go together with palette, subject matter, aesthetically. And I can keep on going here. You can see how these ones go together in Gallipoli and Puglia. This is the inside of the oyster. So pairs are great because they're fun, but also you can't necessarily tell the story, that's the nice way we say it, in one shot. I can't see the inside. I mean, this isn't a Japanese painting where I can do 3 different perspectives at the same time. And here, these dudes on the right, this is what they look like in the 70s. And as my friend Nan says, 70s hunks at the fish market in Gallipoli. Italian. Okay, here's a fun tip. The tip, it's called the broken moment. And that is not my phrase. That comes from Dan Westergren, National Geographic Traveler. And what does that mean? That means that, you know, the main thing has now gotten broken. What does that mean? All right, so in this shot of a princess of Thailand, it was a group shot with these society ladies at this event, at this charity event. And all the other Thai photographers who were all behind me, like, you know, 20 of these guys, are all taking the group shot. That's what they want. And as soon as the, you know, the group shot was over, I just kept shooting, and it's what happens afterwards. So definitely always shoot the broken moment. You will get the surprising shots. You can see this poor woman cannot get up off the floor. See, they have to sit lower than the princess for the group. So they all had to sit on the floor, and some of them had trouble getting up off the floor. So I'm running a little behind, so I'll go through this next part a little bit quickly. I just want to kind of tell you, like, when I'm wandering around, and that doesn't, I mean, I could be wandering in a wedding. I could be wandering in an indoor location where I'm invited on a farm or something. But what stops me? Like, why do I stop? You know, there's all this stuff going on in the world around you. Where do you take the picture? Where do you even point your camera at? So I tried to kind of analyze this. Like, when do I stop to shoot a picture? At what? What stops me? Well, it all comes down to different emotions. So excitement, energy, and joy. Like here, the priest got in with the cheerleaders at this festival in Umbria. I mean, you see this, you shoot it. And believe me, we all do this. I'm just kind of trying to break it down to what I would stop at. What stops me is that face. Suddenly you see that face. And I don't mean necessarily like a craggy old, you know, old lady with wrinkles and that kind of face. It could be any kind of face that stops me, or a look that penetrates, or that far away look. Like this man's expression, where he's just fallen into this reverie, or this lovely expression on this girl's face. You walk by, you just, you know, and I know you guys are thinking, well, that's all good for you to say, but if I stopped to photograph her, that would be trouble. That's true. You have to do it the right way, or maybe you can't do it if mom or dad is not around to ask permission. And Margit here in Romania, I mean, I love where she just falls into this look because she's listening to the radio, and Romania has the most amazing faces, right, Carol? They just look incredible. You don't have to say or do anything. They look amazing. What stops me is stillness, quiet, solitude. This photograph of my friend Nok in Hanoi, or here at a temple in India, South India. Intimacy, love, I swear, I see that. I always photograph. This dad saying goodbye to his kid before going to work that morning. And of course, extraordinary subject matter. We all stop for that. It just jumps out at us. This farm with these amazing, huge rocks, and he's got the stables built into the rock. Incredible subject matter. In this case, it's not so much what stopped me. I researched and found this. At a cocktail party in a Dérolle in Paris, which is where this prince who owns this shop collects these stuffed animals, and they were having a cocktail party upstairs. I'm like, this is unbelievable. It was crazy. These triplets, Del Rubio triplets, apparently they all slept in this bed. That's a whole story behind this one.